What's up?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monday Morning Murder Podcast. We are here to discuss episode 3 of season 1 of Yellowjackets. And this is an episode, it's called The Dollhouse. And this is all about Thaisa, and we meet some creepy characters that are like entities, I guess we might say. Oh, of course, my phone's dinging. But yeah, so it's an interesting episode. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm excited to be here with you all. If you're here watching live, definitely say hello in the chat. I know Moni is here, so it's wonderful to see you. It's been a long time. We're very happy to see you here. How are you doing today, Mandy?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. Kind of dealing with some sick stuff over the weekend, but we know we have the break for Thanksgiving. Let's give thanks for all of the blood sacrifices that caused this holiday, which is like literally like, what it is. So we have to remember that it's not so much what we're celebrating, give more some intent to the indigenous people of our land.
Absolutely. So, yes, if you're celebrating, it is the week of Thanksgiving here in the States. Obviously it's not everywhere, but respectfully, happy Thanksgiving to all, and particularly the indigenous people, including those whose land I am blessed to live upon. So but anyways, besides that, are you doing anything special this week to celebrate?
Yeah, I mean, I luckily got invited out somewhere because I don't want to be cooking, so that's about it. I'm gonna throw together some cheese boards. But
nice. Hey, that's like
yeah.
honestly one of my very favorite parts about Thanksgiving is like just eating we always have like summer sausage and cheese bread, and I don't know, I just love that.
Me too.
I'm gonna be cooking, so it'll be busy. But that's okay.
I'm pretty lazy.
I have to edit this video. I have goals of having a really big video out for you guys by Thanksgiving so you can all enjoy it, because it was actually the video I was actually trying to get out to you for Halloween, but I've just been sick and my voice has sounded terrible. And I was like, well, I'm at least going to do it for Thanksgiving. So my voice still kind of sounds terrible in the audio, but hopefully you guys will still enjoy it. It is Yellowjackets themed, but also it's
very bloody,
and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So
very bloody as well.
Yes, very bloody, very gory, we might say. Hi, Miss T. Good morning. Welcome to the episode 3 stream. So, well, Mandy, shall we get into it?
I'm losing all the notes. I feel like today is one of those days, like everything that could go wrong is going wrong. And I just had like all the notes pulled up and now they're just gone again.
Mandy and I have had weird mornings this morning. Like, it's really stormy outside. So first of all, if I get disconnected or anything like that, like, I really apologize. I think Mandy is still able to carry on the stream, but if I happen to drop out or anything like that, I'll do what I can to get back on, maybe on my phone or something. And then, oh my gosh, my kids' school bus like broke down in front of our house this morning after they got on the bus, and it was fine. They fixed it. They came and got the kids and everything, but it was just like, oh my God, it was just a little bit crazy this morning. So
bear down. Let's go. Let's get into the episode.
So, okay. So this is a really big episode. A lot goes on. So I think we're going to start it out. I'm going to kind of go through basically everything that happens in this episode. And then we are going to talk about, there are two like male figures that we need to talk about in this episode. And that would be the man with no eyes and a dead cabin guy, or cabin daddy, as he is fondly known. So let's go through kind of the events of this episode really quick, and I will pull up our photos here.
Oh wait, I forgot to say hello, all you Yellowjackets enthusiasts. Citizen detectives. See, I even forgot my intro today. Oh my goodness.
Miss T, no. I mean, I'm sure they're wonderful, but
yeah,
I feel you.
we are all in the same boat this week. Maybe it's just the kids' energy just overwhelming us.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's our cover. I liked this cover. There's a lot of triple imagery that we deal with in this episode, and also, like, for going back to the Greek stuff, like Thaisa really fits into that Hecate figure, Hecate, however you say her name. And she's a triple goddess, so she has 3 aspects, and that usually fits into like the maiden mother crone archetype. And so I don't know, I just kind of did her cover sort of like that, because we see all 3 of her sort of generational aspects in this episode, including her grandmother and then including Sammy. So there's a lot of triple imagery in this episode, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
Also, I noticed that each episode, when they say previously on Yellowjackets, like whoever is the main character is saying that. So like last week we had Misty doing it. This week Thaisa was saying it previously on Yellowjackets. So it was a very Thaisa based theme this month, and which is she sets up her dollhouse, she sets up everything, and like you see her and her family and like it's the perfect picture, right? Let's play with this coverted evilness that's really in her.
Yeah, there's we see a lot of sort of her narcissism, and in the next
coverted
episode, yeah,
she's very coverted.
She's got her people, it's kind of starting to dawn on me how she has sort of like Simone and even Van are sort of like her keepers. Like they're always like looking after her, but she sort of like expects that of people, or maybe seeks that out in people. She's got her assistant Bethany. She's got Jessica Roberts doing work for her. All these people do stuff for her so that she can sort of be like the face of whatever it is she's representing, whether it be Senate or whether it be, the soccer team or whatever. Even though she wasn't the captain of the soccer team, it was all about she's very competitive, but in the sense of like, she wants to be the winner. She wants to be seen as a winner. She wants to be number one and that kind of thing. She loves that sort of that competition. She definitely has that in her.
Yeah, we saw it, especially when she's like calling for the vote, and then she's going to Shauna and kind of playing her cowardice, and like it's called nagging, or like she insults people. If you notice, every time I watch it, like every time she speaks, it's something to insult people, put them down, no matter who she's talking to. Why is it taking so long? What are you doing? Oh, you have a problem. They don't want to be found. Like something to always destroy the other person, or kind of one up them, or like make it a lie. Or not make it about herself, or like deteriorate the fact. Even the time with Sammy, when Sammy says you're not the bad one, she gets spiked and she goes and calls and becomes the bad one. It's like you don't want to test her, and she kind of has this whole passive aggressiveness to her, employing and then kind of triangulating situations that are just really, really evil. It's just, oh look, Sierra Spain also in the chat too.
There's something in the, it must be the moon or something. Something's going on with our kids today.
the same thing with us, man. But it's just you see her and this whole like spirit of evilness that is upon her and coming, and like even when she's complaining about hitting, the child hits, she's talking about hitting back. And it's so crazy to see all this stuff. So
very true, very true.
But let's get into Coach Ben's leg, RIP.
Yeah, so we have a big funeral for the people who perished in the plane crash. They kind of line them all up and bury them all and have a nice ceremony for them. And Laura Lee mentions the secants and the co-secants for Rachel, who just moved up from JV. She was I loved like the wording that they used, because it was all kind of just so just, you know, passing on like to the other world. Like she was going to go see Oasis at the Meadowlands. Like just like kind of the wording was so like underworld imagery sort of thing.
I have to point out though, before you move on with this particular comment, the and secants and the covert, the codependency, how secants and secants are always codependent in their equaling, how you have to have that codependent, the narcissist, or you have to have the it was just something to me that really stood out because I never noticed until this episode, because you have to have one or the other. It's like that balancing dualistic thing to equal like the trigonometry to equal the whole shape. So that was like super, super
okay. I'm not a math person at all.
Or
like,
the triangulations.
Yeah, but so I typed in secants, cosecant, like literally, like I can write you guys like a huge essay, but do not ask me to do math. It is not my freaking jam. So secants, cosecants are all like related to this. So basic trig ratios. This is all trigonometry. So the cosecant is like that, like it's like angles of a triangle, I guess. Again, not a math person. Okay, guys. But anyway, so I was just like, it made me really think of the symbol on the trees right now, which nobody's really seen those at this point yet. But it was just interesting, like the triangles, the triangulations. And again, going back to like the 3 imagery that takes place in this episode. So I just thought it was really interesting that, that what those actually mean. And maybe you guys already know that, but I don't, because again, I am not good at math and I don't like it. So, okay. So moving on from the funeral. So, they decide, actually Thaisa decides, and so she kind of goes during the funeral. She's like, I'm going to go take a walk because she's having these flashbacks. She's remembering her grandmother, and she decides to go for a walk. And it kind of seems like she gets really uncomfortable in like the present or the idea of God, which I'm assuming kind of stems back to her grandmother, because her grandmother like taught her about God and like passing on and where you go spiritually and that kind of thing. But then when it came time for her to actually pass on, and Thaisa was there in the room with her, and the man with no eyes comes in, and her grandmother experiences all this terror, even though she seemed really at peace with death and passing on before that. She's like, oh, I'm going home to him and all of this. But anyway, so I'm getting off on a tangent. We'll come back to that idea. But so she goes, she takes a walk, she comes back, she's like, I found a lake. There's a lake over there. Let's go over there. Let's walk down to it. And Jackie, who is essentially their leader, and kind of maintaining like positivity amongst the group. She's like, no, they're coming to save us and this and that. She doesn't want to leave the crash site, which, you know, there's some logic to that as well, but they only have so much water. So they really do need to go to where there are more resources. So they make a vote, and this is kind of the first time we see like the divide between Jackie and Shauna, where Shauna votes with Thaisa and says that they should go to the lake, versus Jackie saying, no, we should stay. And so
they do that with her leg too. Like Thaisa's always trying to do that stuff. I mean, with Allie and her leg and the stuff before.
Good point.
So but yeah, it's the first time that she does it to her face.
Yeah, exactly. She does a lot of, we've seen she does plenty behind her back. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so they go walking. There's a lot of tree imagery, and I just thought that was like interesting to point out. Obviously, Thaisa is connected to trees, whether it be her climbing the tree, you know, in the future timeline, or, you know, as we see in season 1, she climbs the tree like in her sleep state. The man with no eyes guides her to the trees. So she's sort of intrinsically connected to trees, and to like guiding people and pathways and all of that kind of stuff. I'm loving, sorry, right now there's like all these ravens outside and they're going crazy in the storm. They're loving it. They're just flying around. Speaking of, okay, can I go off on a tangent? I was like thinking about this morning while I was watching this storm happen outside my window. I was like, I really hope that when we get to season 3, because it seems like they're going to be like going through seasonal changes and that kind of thing. And especially now, because they're out of their cabin. They're like literally trapped outside of it. I'm like, I really hope they're going to do like some crazy like rainstorms and stuff. What is the Pacific Northwest known for? It's rain and rainstorms and all of that. So like, I really do hope that we're going to get some of that. So anyways, tra-la-la, tangent. Okay, so they find the lake. They're all excited. Oh, on their walk, they do actually, they see a dead bear that's like ripped apart. And they're like, oh my God, what could have done that? And Coach Ben said that a wolf could have. A pack of wolves can take anything down if they work together. And I think that that's like really important, an important line, because as we talked about last week, you know, when the girls work together, they are super powerful. They are a wonderful team that works together. And it's kind of like the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives kind of thing. So, but anyway, so they make it down to the lake. They're all excited. They go swimming. It's like this lovely little moment, which of course, you know, Mandy and I could go off on a tangent and connect back to Greek mythology and the Eleusinian mysteries, but we won't do that too hard, but maybe. But while they are swimming, they see this reflection on the hillside, and they're like, oh, something's over there. So they decide to walk over there. Now, I want to ask you guys this. Do you really think that like when they get to the cabin, it's so shade, like there's trees all around it. Really, the only thing that could have been reflecting would be the window. But I just feel like it's so dark and gloomy in there that I like some part of me was kind of wondering if it might be something else, someone else like trying to motion them over, maybe Javi's friend, or just, I don't know, the wilderness and its tricks. I don't know. Just let me know what you guys think in the chat if there was anything interesting that you thought about the reflection. Okay, and then so they find.
Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
Are you just gonna do the synopsis, or do you want me to make commentary yet? Or
I'm just gonna do a synopsis really quick, and then we're gonna talk about the man with no eyes. But I wanted to just
all right. I'll wait then.
Yeah,
because I have a lot to say about the no eyes and the blindness and stuff. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I want to kind of get through like the bulk of it, and then because you know, we've been going on a little bit long on our live stream, so I want to try and like reel it in so we're not going off on too many tangents. But I wanted to kind of just go through synopsis, then we'll get into it, talk about the man with no eyes, Thaisa, the few of the characters, and then we're gonna save dead cabin guy for last because he appears at the end of the episode. So as you can see, like, here's the cabin. Really, like, what is so reflective here? It doesn't really seem like the window would be putting out that much light all the way out there. I don't know. Just my thoughts, but tell me what you guys think. And Mandy, if you want to say something. Peter's like, Mandy's ready to go. Yeah, say what you got to say. Say something. Because I think that's about the end. Oh, other than well, you know, they find a bit of reading material once they get into the cabin. So anyways, okay. So Mandy, let's catch up. Thoughts, questions. What are your ideas? What are you thinking about?
Yeah. So the whole thing about like the eyes and things here, like, let me just tell you, so there's a lot in this about biblical stuff too that like I'm going to go off on a big whole tangent later on or make some videos, but a lot of it is with demonic possession and things. This is how it starts. They go for your eyes. Like in the Bible, it talks about how King David sees women bathing. They go to the lake, they're bathing. They talk about how when you see things like pornographic stuff, they talk about, you know, opening your eyes to lust, things like that. And like also Thaisa's grandma, when she's praying and calling, she opens up a portal pathway to God, she thinks, right? But then who appears is the man with no eyes, which is like a demonic type possession thing. And they say narcissists are also demons and they have the spirits of demons, Jezebels, lots of things like that. So it all kind of like falls forth in full circle or triangulates in this perspective. Mm-hmm. Also, so what happens is like instead of her praying, like she's praying to God, she's on her deathbed. We know that near-death experiences also open up portals to the spirit realm. And whatever you believe, it is open. And in the spirit realm, there's good and evil, period. You got both things that are doing. So when you open up to one, you're automatically open up to the other. And what happens is demons go first things first for your eyes. Like, when you talk about the blind shall see or whatever, but this is what happens. They blind you with like perceptions and porn, or like she comes and sees the fear, which is also in a sense a principality of demons. So she's afraid, and she's also pushing that into Thaisa at this point, which is blinding her from like other truths, because she completely lives in unknown and fear, because that's what covert narcissists do. That's what liars do. That's what people who insult you, like Thaisa, every other word for her is an insult. An insult, or when people put you down, or when people go off on you and say negative things, are usually just projected fears that they have experienced in their life, or someone has hurt them, and they project it on someone else to one up you or withstand you. Or, I mean, honestly, okay, so it's really primal, honestly. Like what it is, it's like an animalistic level. It takes you out of their comfort zone. It makes them strong in resistance to change. They don't trust anyone or the different way of thinking. Yes, Moni says their shadow. Mm-hmm. It is like their shadow. In Carl Jung, we've talked about a lot of this. So I want everyone to like full circle this whole concept with the eyes and what we're doing with Thaisa here. And yeah, it is very, very deep. And that's why I love this show. This whole show is deep, and it shows us all the symbolism, all these things in so many different ways, different connections that we've never seen. And, Thaisa is exactly that. She's a strong resistance to everything. She never trusts anyone. She fears everything. She always thinks everyone is, going against her. And, they put themselves out on their own in a sense. And she speaks badly behind people's backs. She gossips. She's always there to like, instead of helping even Lottie, when she's talking about the bear, she wants to insult and make fun of a person, pretending like she helps. When Nat calls her from jail, she's still insulting everything, the whole thing. So we see that this is like her trauma wound as a child that pushes this on her. It may be like the demon that came in ended up jumping in Thaisa, the blind, because she can't see. She literally cannot see when she like disassociates. So that's just part of, it's deep part. It gets really, there's so much more to it, but like, that's the short version of what I'm seeing through this whole thing, is all of these things that attack the eyes, these spirits, these life. Even like when we go into the cabin, we see dirty, we see spirits, alcohol, we see all these different things, the porn right away. Like, it's very subtle, like Thaisa as a covert narcissist. Everything's very subtle. And then even Sammy cutting out the eyes of his doll. Come on,
Definitely. Yeah, it's super creepy. And really interesting. That's a good point. Yeah, it is a weird thing. And I don't really know what to make of the whole scene at the end where like when little Ty, she like opens her grandmother's eyes. I think I have a picture of it. And she doesn't have there's like nothing there. Or like there's like, I don't know, kind of a glass eye in there. I don't know. So I don't really know what to make of all of that symbolism, but it definitely would be traumatizing for a little girl for sure. And I do think that she has some. So the showrunners have said that the man with no eyes is meant to represent the embodiment of death. Now, what we make of that, I guess, is open to interpretation. And my real question is like, okay, so did she somehow inherit? Like, is he a demonic entity that's sort of attached to Thaisa, or to her family line, something of that nature? And the other question is, because of that, did Thaisa take him to the wilderness, or is he already part of the wilderness? Is he like a separate entity? Because here's kind of like what my question led to was, they talk about, especially Natalie talks about, we brought this back with us. We brought this evil thing back with us. So when we consider the man with no eyes, like, did Thaisa bring him to the wilderness, who then maybe attaches himself to the other girls, or is it something else entirely? And this is kind of getting into like exploring, going back to the threes. We have the man with no eyes, we have dead cabin guy, and then kind of I think our third entity is sort of meant to be the wilderness, because the wilderness sort of, you know, yeah, it sort of makes it
which is
slightly
what they call
known, and
narcissism.
yeah, like there we start to get some of the weirder things happening, because the more they explore, the more they venture into the wilderness and that kind of thing. And so yeah, so I don't know, it's kind of all a weird question. Are these things intertwined? Did Thaisa inherit the man with no eyes from her grandmother? Because it doesn't seem like her grandmother was aware of him or had fear of him, because her whole thing was she believed in God. She believed that God was, you know, she was going home to him when she died. But then when the man with no eyes showed up, she was absolutely terrified, and that was not what she was expecting. You know, she'd been talking about angels and heaven and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting, like if he is he like a grim reaper? Is he somebody that comes for every soul? Because that also back into like Persephone symbolism, because you know, Persephone is said to be like the face of death, the one who comes to claim souls. She's the goddess of spring, but she's also the goddess of death. And so what the Greeks believed, or the Romans, was that when you died, it was actually Persephone who came and took your soul. There wasn't like a grim reaper aspect. Of course, they would take that away from a woman, right? But yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting how they're.
I think.
Go ahead.
This is the thing, though. Yeah, like so demons can never, like, if you have, like, it says in the Bible and all this stuff, like if you have God, like demons cannot enter. If you have claimed or you've been baptized, they can't claim you, but they can monitor you. You know, they're monitoring spirits like animals, dead things. And it sounds like this and generational curses, which are things that literally you don't even know about most of the time, or most of the things, because they're all hidden or coverted. Or like if your uncle was, like things that travel through your DNA or blood. I think that this is something that's attached to Thaisa's family, because no one else seems to see him or be affected other than her. And beyond that, she, the more power you give something is the more it takes over you. Beyond that, like if you have some sort of spirit, if you give it power, that you're giving it to it. Like it's always there. Same with like the Holy Spirit. It's always there. If you give it power, then it gives you power. Same thing with demonic power. If you give it power, it gives you power. So whatever you want to do, but like she kind of personifies this person, and again, not wanting to accept it, but it's still kind of there in her life, whether she sees it or not, through her child. And like I think it is through her family, since we see it with Sammy, even though it's not her blood. But it doesn't matter if they're in the same household as you, or if you're around their life, or if you're like, touching, laying hands, whatever it is, they can do that. I mean, they're always there, and it doesn't matter where, they're just in the realm. Like it doesn't have to be, it can go with you from house to house. It can go with you wherever you go. If you go to the wilderness, it will follow like this. It follows. So I don't know if that's the same that Nat is talking about, but I definitely think that this is the it for Thaisa. And she, again, she's blind to all of it. She doesn't even want to accept it. She puts it on everyone else. So it's like, this is kind of an embodiment of her, if you ask me, because she literally, or this is her third, the tree tie.
Yeah, I agree. I always have felt like, she had, because in season 2, when she's talking about, there's Thaisa, there's her alter state, and then there's like a third entity. And I think Van asks who it is or who he is or something like that. And she doesn't really give an answer, but he's who guides her. So she sees him in her like unconscious state, or blindly follows, like you said. And so it is interesting, like, it seems more like she brought him there with them. But yeah, is he a wilderness
triggered,
or is he something else, like foreign to the wilderness, and now he's like just like everyone else, sort of making his way, grasping his way to survive, or something like that. I don't know. It's a weird idea.
Or it could be the fact that like where they are, if they're in that like Canadian triangle, or that realm where they're actually closer to the spirits, now Thais is able to see him or interact with him because she's closer to the near-death experience, spirit area, realm, whatever. And they're also praying. Like, remember, she sees him when they are praying, when they are calling upon spirits, whether it's going to be good or bad, you open up a doorway, period, which we've talked about the doorway symbolism before in season 2, where we see the doors of the cabin keeping it going. You open up a doorway to the spirits, to whatever you want to believe, good or bad, evil or good, whatever, it's there. And I see also, like, when they're praying, she just wants to, like, deny it and walk away. She goes away. She's not even, opening herself to it. And she's one of the people who fights the connection with it, the wilderness, completely. So this is why the blind man is so important to Thaisa, because she literally is the blind man when it comes to seeing the spirits and realm. No matter how many times they show her, she's ignoring it and trying to go off. Also, when she, like, walks away, and this face where instead of being focused on what's going on and when they're praying and remembering these people, she goes into herself. She is very self-conceited. She thinks about, I mean, I know it's a trauma thing for her, but for me, I saw this little smirk that, like, covert narcissists do, where they make it all about them, and then they kind of are pleasured by, especially, like, sadists. So there's, like, the sadist that gets pleasure by hurting people, and then the other one that likes watching people. And then there's also people who, like Misty, who like to experience the same kind of emotions or put themselves in that experience. Like, you can be a covert sadist too. And that's what, like, kind of she is. She gets off on her or watching other people in pain. And even when, like, Coach falls, she kind of, again, Thaisa with this face that's like, and it's a little smirk. It looks numb, but she's non-reactive except for, like, this little kind of smirk that takes over. And she does this a lot of times, and I saw it, like, around the third watch, where she does it again and again and again. And it looks like disassociating, but at the same time, it's like it's this, she's enjoying or watching and just kind of not even really realizing that she likes that pain, or she's making it back to her gain, in a sense,
Yeah,
that's what, I mean, there's a lot to it. Yeah,
she's kind of she's a team player, but she is also, like, a wild card, because she definitely thinks for herself out there, or what's going to be best for her. Because even later when we see, like, she takes her own little faction and tries to make their way out, that was her idea. So,
well,
she was
interesting.
ready to do it.
Go ahead.
Oh, she was ready to do it whether she had anyone coming with her or not. She's like, I'll do it on my own. But she has no fear on, like, like, taking her own path, in a sense. But she does require a lot of, like, assistance that she doesn't, get. Yeah, there is, like, that subtle
she doesn't.
She needs keepers. She needs people to keep after her, because otherwise she would not be as successful as she is. I mean, because she's almost foolhardy in that sense, because she's she will do things like set out on her own. She'll trip Allie Stevens without really thinking about the consequences. Doing all of those things where she doesn't necessarily think about the consequences is almost foolhardy. But she's still
impulsive.
Has that much determination. So it's an interesting thing, especially when she has someone like the man with no eyes. Maybe it gives her a sort of fearlessness because she's sort of seen death. I don't know. It's an idea.
So it was interesting that you said, like, she's a team player, but she always goes with herself, because that is exactly what covert narcissists do. This is or sociopaths too, and politicians. Like, they seem like they're the team player. They seem like they volunteer. They do all these things. They're never ones to take the lead, but they really genuinely want the lead, and they want to be, like, seen as the team player, but really she will only do what she wants to do. And these keepers are really just kind of people who love her because she has negged them, negated them, devalue them. She goes off on them, but then she'll say one or two things to make them seem like she cares, but she really is mean to every single one of them. They actually more fear her than anything, or they liked her principality, like, oh, I want a lesbian who's in politics or something, versus the reality of her character. And I think also that needs to be said, because she is coverted 100% in this sense, and she wants to be seen as a team player, but she does whatever she wants, and she is impulsive. She doesn't think it through. She thinks she knows what's best. She doesn't care what anyone else says. She'll just do it. she'll gaslight people to get what she wants her to do, or tell them, or play it, play them like she does the other politician. She'll use something against them to make them back off or not be strong against her, because that's her only strength, is putting other people down. Like, her strength isn't in being a team player or helping or saying good job. It's being the enforcer by fear and coercion and things like that. So and most people think she is a team player, or she's a leader and all this stuff, but she's just, it's not true. You got to look at the little things. Like, she might seem like she wants to be a leader because that is her projected role. That is what she wants you to think. That is her picture perfect dollhouse she creates. The picture perfect house. That's how we're introduced to Thaisa's character, is she's taking a picture perfect in her house with her family, with this whole life that she completely blows up because it's not true. That covert, like, these are people of the lie. This is what they do, and they will lie to you, white lies, which give white eyes completely. So, it's, don't be fooled.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you've got a good point, because even in this scene right here with Akila, she's like, "You've got the JV team fooled. You're not as much as a bitch as you pretend you are, or whatever." Yeah,
because she does one thing nice.
Yeah,
one thing.
Well, that's yeah. These two are sweet together, though. I do like them together. Moni asks, so are you guys 100% that she killed the family dog? I am. I remember I kind of toyed with that idea, I think, before season 2, or maybe even into season 2, because of all the things. Like, I do think that Lottie pulls a lot of strings and sort of created these situations to sort of entice the situation. So I did kind of toy with that idea that maybe it was like her little minions, but I don't know. I don't think so, because I think like her character and like what it represents, or like what it, gained for her, I think there's something to that, especially with like the whole scene with her winning the election and all of that. But I don't know. What do you think, Mandy?
I think for sure she did, because the family dog was getting more attention, and like, you see it introduced as, hey, the dog wants to go to the park. She's like, oh, you're bothering me. I also think that, see how she's taking things away from Sammy all the time, because that's what she does. She thinks that that's her ploy. She takes away the doll. She takes away the stuff. I definitely think she did kill it. I think that the really interesting thing is when we see her buying the new dog and she doesn't give a crap. She's like, this one works, whatever. This is good. Yeah, and you see like the full grown dog here, and they name it the same name, because do you know how devaluating that is on a person? It's like when you, oh, hey dog, or hey honey, hey baby, or like, you don't address that a creature is a new name, a different creature. You're just like naming it, labeling it as, this is Sammy's pet, the same name, like the new one.
On that note, with like the names of things, I definitely think there's something to, first of all, the doll's name is Manny. So it's like man, and then she like sacrifices the doll. But then also Sammy, she calls him Sandwich, and then like his Halloween costume later in the season, like I can't remember what episode, but he dresses up as a sandwich. So there's something like, to the cannibalism with Thaisa and with men. I don't know. She's like, yeah, into sacrificing men, or maybe that's her.
It's not even that. It's like just that you place things. She itemizes things in people and experiences. Like, she makes them items, and literally narcissists will do that. They use baby pet names. They never call you by your name ever. So, and they'll do that like to devalue you. You don't have a name. You don't have a voice. That's why I think Javi doesn't speak, because they steal his voice. They steal anything. And like the name, that would be them giving you power, and they make you an item, like, oh, this is my toy when it's playtime, versus, this. And like, she does call him by his nicknames. It's never anything more. So I gotta check my kid again.
What's that? Oh, okay. So we did get the Phil Bathurst ad, which came out this week, and so Thaisa, of course, went on the defensive, which Simone advised against. She was like, when we started this campaign, you know, you said you were going to stay focused on the issues, and her you know, main focus is on education, which is interesting. But basically he puts out the ad. Hold on, I wrote down the wording of it. So, what do we really know about Taissa Turner? She claims to put education first, but has she really been honest about how? The only real way is by cannibalizing your tax dollars. Paid for by Phil Bathurst. So obviously there's a lot of questions even about her as a politician. Like, what happened out there? What really happened out there? And that's why she's paying Jessica Roberts to like put in the, you know, do the research and see if anyone's willing to talk. You know, she's offering them a lot of money, and they do have that conversation. They have that phone call in episode 3, which is where we really first realized that it was Taissa who hired Jessica Roberts. Up until then, it's still been a mystery. And I kind of forgot that because I've seen this so many times, but I was like, oh my God, this is actually the first time that they, you know, that it comes out that it was Taissa who hired her. And, you know, Jessica says, oh, some of you guys, you know, really like to live off the grid, but nobody's been talking so far. And, you know, in her position of trying to be a politician, it makes sense to, you know, see if there's anyone that's willing to say anything, because of course that's going to bring down her entire campaign. But still super shady. And as we can see, it's just another level of those sort of devious, narcissistic sort of things that she's, you know, levels that she's willing to go to. Because I'm sure that Simone is unaware of Jessica Roberts, but it's another one of Taissa's little cronies that she has working for her. So we see them all starting to kind of line up in this episode, and we're going to see it more and more as the season progresses. So, okay, I'm going to try and show you guys something I did. This is so stupid. Okay. I think it's going to show. I tried to show this during the Greek mythology stream, but I think this is even better because I couldn't get it to work, and I think it's going to work now. So I'm going to try and play it for you guys. But Taissa, you know, she is a politician herself, and she has her own whatever things that she's putting out. So if you guys would like to see her latest ad, let me go ahead and present it to you. Okay. Whoops. Not that one. Let me know if the sound isn't working, because that was the issue last time. Okay, so there's Taissa's campaign. You know, she's pro-education and anti-smoking, so she's got my vote. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about that. Just a
good job, Erin.
Oh, thank you.
Earlier.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's funny actually. I think we should do a series of these. Yeah.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. You know,
don't worry. She might come after your kid though, so just be careful.
Well, you know, yeah, but she will give them a dog from the rescue shelter. I don't know. Anyways. So that was that. Okay. So, all right. We've kind of jumped ahead, but I think we've mostly talked about pretty much everything about Taissa. Let me see if we really missed anything. She did call Phil Bathurst. Basically, she was like, you know, she is going to hit back. Which even though Simone advised her not to, again, we see her going behind her back. So she ends up, and what's funny is she goes in, she has that conversation with Sammy, and Sammy's, you know, he goes,
Simone.
He says, why don't people like you? And she said, well, I'm different than what people expect. And it scares them. And I thought that was like such a great line. First of all, I really liked that. But then he says something about, or he says, I know you're not the bad one. And she says, is someone else the bad one? And he says, no, like he shakes his head no, and he rolls over. So he's essentially telling her, like, you are the bad one. You just don't realize it, kind of thing.
But that also like instigates her to go and call him, because you see the whole episode. She's like, she's getting information. She's like, oh, well, what do you have on it? Is she 18? Like, can I do this? Like, and you know that she's kind of questioning herself, but then you see her like literally stalking her on the Facebook, like monitoring the spirit or whatever, like, and just ready to attack. And I think it was literally Sammy saying, you're not, maybe it was him saying, you know, maybe it was her just triggered, like, I am a bad bitch. Like, watch me out, watch out. I am the bad one. Because that's how I took it. Like, she was like, you know what? Nah. Like, she got irritated because somebody pointed out something that she is or isn't, whether you want to say, or maybe the inside of her, that disassociation, tree tie, you know, kind of got started to be thrown out there. But it was funny because the whole time, even the remarks back to Sammy were again like her picture perfect remarks, like the things that she will say at a campaign. They weren't like really connecting, and like you see her power playing the whole time, and her wife just like watching what she's saying, how she's responding, reminding her, hey, our son just assaulted someone. Oh, well, whatever. And then she's talking about assaulting back, but not assaulting physically, but in like a covert way. And that's what covert narcissists do. Like like full on overt narcissists will assault you. They'll throw stuff at you. Covert ones will be like, look, and they'll push you to throw stuff at them. And then they'll like record it or attach it and then throw it back in your face. Like you're the crazy one, even though that they stabbed you or cut you 1,000 times, 1,000 ways, and literally drove you to the point of insane that no one else can actually do. And you're like, why do you disrespect me so much? Like, that's what she does. And she used to be so like overt before, but like after the wilderness, now as an adult, she's more covert. But like every insult is a cut, to everyone she goes to. Anytime anybody even gives her a compliment, she attacks them. And it was just interesting, her responses to me. You know, I didn't know this till about the third time watching though, but they're all very politically, you know, their responses she has recorded or lied about herself or created this image. What would this person say in this situation? Oh, well, people don't like me because of this. And then also the playground scene with Sammy, she turns it into like, oh, somebody said this about her campaign. Like, apparently, like, do we even think that's true? Because we don't.
What I noticed too that was interesting is she immediately lied to cover for Sammy. Because
exactly.
She said to the parent was not what happened. She's like, oh, I guess they were playing rough. But really what happened was he punched the kid in the face.
And Sammy straight up says it. Oh, I think you're froze. Hold on a second. I think Aaron's froze, or maybe I'm froze. Somebody's froze. We're frozen in time with the divine covered icicles trapped on mind. Let me see. Text her. Anyway. Maybe it was me just like interrupting, being a crappy co-host. I have a problem with interruption. Sorry, guys. All right, so chat. Are you guys hearing us? Is someone tell me are you hearing Aaron? Are you hearing me? Her? What it is? I'm live. Let's see. Aaron's probably coming back in. So I guess it's me. Anyway, let's go back with Thaisa. So Mandy, are you familiar with Carl Jung's work? Yes. I love Carl Jung so much, actually, or Jung. There's a lot. I talk about it in season 2 when we first started. Now that we're going on these things, I want to get back into it. I have a lot of ideas for Carl Jung and this idea about their shadow work. The red, like Shauna, for example, she has all these diaries and all of their things. And one of them at the end is red. So I think that that's going to be what gets Shauna to go. That's kind of a theory I have. We also talk and familiarize him with a lot of the things that we're doing in the episodes. Peter Griffin, you have to watch the show. I know you haven't actually watched the show. So you have to get that, and then you're going to see all these connections, because it's not just Carl Jung. There's connections with like angels versus demons, biblical connections, the Torah connections. There's a lot of connections with Greek philosophy, which, you know, all these archetypes are basically played out across the board in so many different things. There's like Thanos or death. We get Nyx, Hecate. We get all of these different symbolism stuff, especially with all of the props and designs and colors. Like I don't think that the team that did the set and props, like, you think it's just the cabin, but no, like, this literally has so much going on with all the different things that they are going through, and like the clothing, what they do, the symbolism, their colors, what they drink. We did a whole Greek mythology stream, which is like the third generation of Greeks. I would like to go back to the first one because the primordial stuff is very in play for this, especially when we talk about cannibalism and how the primordial gods were very much into cannibalizing each other. I think there's so much with narcissism and control. Faye says be back. Hurry up, Faye. I feel nervous now. But anyway, I guess we'll still talk about I'm seeing a lot of things too. I've been going back and making all of these biblical connections now, which is like crazy because a lot of the storyline follows biblical and Torah stories. I wonder, and I have the question, maybe, you know, Ashley and Bart, I wonder if they're Jewish or they have that stuff or whatever, but I'm going to get into that later because I want to make it like really great and get all of the facts in line and don't just want to like, you know, talk what I'm feeling. I want to put it as a well-organized chapter, especially also with the Carl Jung stuff. Hey, Faye, we missed you.
Sorry, the storm cut off my Wi-Fi for a minute, but hopefully we're back. Hopefully everything, if I end up getting cut off again, I might just end up going on my phone. So anyways, I'm sorry about that.
The narcissism with the winds in the wilderness.
I know, the wilderness is like, shut the F up. I don't know if I was saying something extra juicy. I can't even remember at this point, but
me neither. And I got really nervous, so I started talking and answering some questions in the chat, and then probably overtalk that.
You're fine. I'm sure you did a fantastic job. Okay,
so let's move on. Let's go to the next character because
let's talk about Shauna, I guess, or Jackie and Shauna and sort of their drama. Let me pull up a photo. So Jackie, you know, she kind of starts out, she's like she is sorry, let me get my photos here. She's sort of like, you know, maintaining that leadership, the influence, you know, she's trying to keep people in good spirits and that kind of thing. But as they leave the crash site, she really doesn't want to. And I kind of view that as like her sort of fearing to leave civilization, or her resistance to leaving civilization or venturing out into the unknown. She just kind of refuses to accept their circumstances, like from the gate. And I think that part of leaving the plane is like accepting their circumstances. And then once they get to the cabin, you know, she goes in and she's like, it stinks in here. It's gross in here. She finds the food is rotten, and she just gets overwhelmed with like frustration. And she's like, you know, this is why we should have stayed at the plane. But it's like, okay, here, sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. Did I cut out for a minute? It did on my end. Okay. So anyways, damn you wilderness. Okay. So, so she has a hard time acclimating to their circumstances. And she goes outside and she sits on the porch, and she's got poison ivy on her leg. And at one point she even says, oh, if poison ivy is the thing that kills me out here, then I deserve to die, kind of thing. But she goes outside, she's putting her ointment on her leg, and Shauna comes out eventually to go and like comfort her. And I just thought this was such a moment of foreshadowing, because, you know, she goes out there and she brings her out a blanket, and she's like, here, I thought you might get cold. And then she's apologizing to Jackie. She's like, I'm sorry that I didn't, you know, basically I didn't vote with you, you know, when we took the vote. And so it's just such this moment of foreshadowing where, you know, if they could have repeated this moment, then things could have been so much different. But knowing what their eventual circumstance or their, you know, eventual outcome is just like, oh, damn. So it was a really interesting moment. She brings her the blanket, here, stay warm. I'm sorry. You know, it's just like, oh man. And of course they cuddle, and they're so, these two, they're just so homoerotic. So
the heart necklace as well. Like Shauna's
yeah,
wearing it still.
good
I
point.
also saw like Jackie being cold, like when she steps in the lake, she's like, "Oh, it's freezing," and she doesn't actually get in all the way. And this whole time, like they kind of give you foreshadowing to her being so cold, cold to the wilderness, cold to accepting that it has any power, cold
Mm-hmm.
to and
During in
it's
another
interesting.
yeah, in a episode 5, I think it is too, she like doesn't want to get out of bed because she's so cold when everyone else is like up doing chores. So it's always like her and the cold imagery. So it's interesting. Okay, and then so here it is, her and Shauna kind of disagreeing with each other, and Shauna is just a little more accepting of their circumstances, a little more focused on survival. And I thought it was really interesting, the line she said, I didn't know what's right or wrong. I just didn't want us to die of thirst or something like that. And I just thought that was really interesting. That was part of her apology to Jackie. And I thought it was funny because later they end up nearly dying of hunger, but they eat Jackie. So it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of like an interesting like play on words there. So, okay.
Also the like blankets, like let's just like think about like how you can be blanketed in faith, you can be blanketed in comfort, protection. Blankets have more of a symbolic tone to it as well. It's like when you get it, you're blanketed by a friendship. And like to me, it's like Shauna having actually a real moment before, or maybe it's her motherhood instincts kicking in now that she's prego. So let's know. But it's like there's so much behind a blanket too that it's just something. Oh, hey
Hi,
Kelly
Kelly
Jean, what's
Jean.
up?
Well, hopefully you can stay for a little bit. Nice to
And
see
then
you.
we also see in Van going back in, getting a blanket. We talk about some
Yeah.
symbolism with golden fleeces a little bit. I think we'll probably get more into that in the future because we don't want to overdo ourselves.
Yeah. And one other thing I kind of caught in that moment where she's like apologizing to her, like Shauna's kind of a baby. Like she's kind of like a little, like she's sort of
She
like a
is a
little
child.
baby, even though she we think of her as like this fierce butcher or whatever. Like she's like, I just need my best friend right now. What if they never come for us? And then like going back to episode 1, Jackie's reminding us of the story of when they were kids. Shauna was afraid to fly. She gives her the necklace to comfort her on the flight. So Shauna's just kind of like a little baby. And but I
It's
was
not
thinking
even just
about
a
that more,
baby. Oh,
like as she transitions into her adult life, that sort of carries on with her, like, or she sort of like retreats into
she's a
that.
child.
Yeah.
She stays stuck in her teenage and child years because of the trauma. And she's
Yeah.
what Carl Jung would say is the man child, the version, but she's a woman child. And she literally shelters her own daughter to become a version of the woman child. And there's a whole psychologically behind the man child. And this is exactly what she is. And she constantly stays there. And it is, you're right. She is like a baby still. And she continues to keep that in everything
Like
she does impulsively.
Jeff even kind of like caters to it, because we talked about that last week where he's sort of worked to like keep her in this comfortable lifestyle, so she's sort of sheltered and safe so that she never experiences like these traumatic experiences like she already had. But in doing so, she's like retreated into being like an eternal child in a sense. And that's also part of like her mythology with like Demeter and Persephone, the mother-daughter dichotomy, cycle,
She's
whatever
never
you might call it. But even looking at her relationship that starts to develop with Adam in this episode, that plays into it, because the whole thing, and I was like, I wrote down the whole thing that that Adam said to her when he's like telling her this story, and I really like did not really understand
it's so
the
weird.
purpose behind it. I think he's maybe like explaining an art project he did or something like that, because I mean, it looked like it was frayed down to a single wire, but it was actually an aircraft cable. It could hold 4,000 pounds. But turns out the NYPD wasn't so thrilled about having a giant bank safe dangling above the streets of Chelsea. After that debacle, I pretty much had to swallow my pride, move back across the river. I was flat broke, but it made me connect to my roots again. That was like some underworld symbolism right there. But it made me connect to my roots again. Figurative stuff mostly. I don't know why, but there's something freeing about it. I go where the work takes me. I don't ask why or where. I just let go. And like, there's so many ways of looking at what he just said, because personally, like, you know, obviously we know Shauna like expresses later that she is attracted to artists, or she like kind of had the fantasy of dating an artist when she, you know, was in her college years, but she never got to fulfill that kind of stuff. And so Adam kind of meets that criteria of something that she didn't experience and she wanted to. But also, like, when you really kind of think about it, it's such like a sleazy dude kind of thing to say. Like, no offense, but like, I've been involved with artist guys in questionable situations, and it's they're so like, I don't even know, it's just too easy. Like, you can just read through the things that he's saying where it's just like, Shauna, come on, like, if you had some life experience, you'd be able to like see right through sort of the stuff he's saying, or not be so like impressed with it. But he's like so pretty, he's showing her attention, he's kind of fitting that bill of like what she would have desired. And so it's like this perfect storm of stuff. But I just, part of me, I was like thinking about it this morning. I was like, it doesn't matter like how good looking he is. The things that he says are just too like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like, just like, I don't even know. Just like, it's just like a basic ass dude. Like, I don't know. Like, I just don't fall for crap like that from guys anymore. So
So you notice though, when when he is saying these things, they actually focus on Shauna's face a lot, and just kind of like whatever. She's not really attentive too much. She's not listening, except for the part when she does say about money, and she's like, her face changes where, you know, about being broke. Like, she's like, oh, I know about that. But he ends up like, I think a lot of stuff he's saying was very philosophical. It's very like Zen. And when you reach a certain point of enlightenment, you like just, you have to let go of control. You go wherever that takes you. You know, you don't ask why or where. For me as an artist, that is my goal, is not to have an end goal, but to flow through the journey and the mission. Because when you have an end goal, you limit yourself in perspective, you limit yourself in art. And then that's in like an existential view. That is what you want to do. You don't have an end goal. You just go. You live truly. You paint as you create. And like, I thought it was really beautiful, but she doesn't care because she doesn't want to do that. Her end goal here was to find her husband cheating. And by the way, I have to say, like, this is the difference between like covert stuff. She never says things direct. Even when she invites him to the hotel room, she doesn't say it. She like sets up all the things, but she never actually says it. This is how covert narcissists apply. They will secretly make yourself available, but never actually being straight up forward. Like, I'm cheating, I'm available, this and that. Never showing or saying, but doing all the actions to imply. And also beyond that, like when she's talking to Jeff earlier in the scene, hey, you know, how about 4:00? How about this? Like, she's literally implying all these things, but never actually directly saying. And then for me, I'd be like, who the hell is this girl? Why is she texting you? What's at 4:00? Oh, let's go together. At 4:00, we're going together. How about this? We're gonna go make sure you buy some flowers. Like, oh, we'll get some, you know, and I'll go up with them and I'll be like, what's up? How you doing?
No, see, I would be, you know? I'm like Shauna.
I don't hate her. I'll be like, yo, what's up, woman to woman? We got to stop these man bullshit. Like, that's how I roll.
I'm more like Shauna. Like, I do like the way it was set up, because, you know, Shauna's sort of in this situation where she could do that. And I think that's initially like what her plan was. She was going to wait around, and then she was going to be like, what the hell is this? But then the fact that Adam crossed her path, which is like super suspicious anyways, is like, really, I'm just here getting a classic martini at this hotel. Like, who drinks
and
that?
I happened to roll up right
again, going back to like
when I need you to cover my lies. Like you
I
roll.
don't know.
That's
It's
why I
just
said he's not real. Like I don't know. Is he like the active imagination? Carl Jung says it's like a lot. Maybe Callie and Adam and the whole thing is their active imagination. Like even the idea you think, but like when girls become so much involved and you become so like entangled in each other's imaginations, like the team. Maybe they killed him, but like they didn't. Like maybe it's all like active imagination as the team because they're all like the brains just kind of get lost in this. I mean, it's just crazy how set up it was. It really was so weird when you go back in it.
I had this other thought too, where, and the more and more I'm like watching this, I'm kind of starting to be convinced, to where like, and I think somebody asked in maybe the first episode 1, they said, do you think these girls became gods out there? And I had this thought because obviously we do, like we have the great correlation with them, but I was thinking more and more about Adam and Shauna, or Simone and Thaisa, or even like Stan and Misty, where they're almost like devotees of that certain goddess, right? And so we have to wonder if these women are somewhat deified in a sense, like by the Yellowjackets obsessives, maybe perchance. They haven't revealed anything that's happened to them. And so there is this sort of mysticism behind their secrets, right? Their initiation process that they went through, their sacred initiation, their time in the wilderness that no one speaks of, no one knows of. And that's obviously clearly like connected to mystery religions and that kind of thing. But we know that Adam has read that book that they have. And obviously there are other Yellowjackets obsessives out there. Simone, we find out in the next episode, she's in the comp lit department, the star of the comp lit department. And which I looked up is, I said comprehensive literature or something. It's actually comparative literature, which means she is a citizen detective. So it's like,
no, and I mean, we're comparing all the literature we know too. Every episode we're here and comparing all these archetypes and things. Like that is what we do all this entire show. So
yeah, so
what club is real?
Yeah, so I am starting to wonder if, and especially going like considering like Lottie's her cult that she has going on, are these people like, do they has there been some sort of subtle setting up or celebrity like underground sort of thing where these women have been sort of juxtapositioned as goddess figures, and perhaps that these people are like their devotees? And like with Adam in that statement that he said, like I mentioned, there is some underworld symbolism, him crossing the river, he's flat broke, but he had to connect with his roots. All of these things are like, that's crossing the river to the underworld, you have to pay the ferryman, that kind of thing. And so or like looking at Stan, we kind of suspected like with Stan, like going with Misty, like he seemed so nervous, but it's like, why? She's a beautiful woman, unless he was aware of her history, and has she been like actively like sacrificing people as part of their religion, their sacred sort of, initiation process. So anyways, and and a part of that, as we believe, is like a descent into the underworld, the the catabasis, the descent, the search, and the ascent. And so what you can take from that, and that's kind of also what Adam mentioned here. But they did also go in, they had another mention to a book club. So they read, or they spoke a quote to each other. So Adam said, "We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful what we pretend to be." And Shauna said, "And I asked myself about the present, how wide it was, how deep it was, and how much was mine to keep." And that comes from a novel by Kurt Vonnegut called Mother Night. Kurt Vonnegut was sort of like a beatnik poet from the 50s and 60s. He wrote a book called Slaughterhouse-Five, which is very famous.
Adam's very beatnik.
What's that?
Adam is very beatnik too.
Oh, absolutely.
His style, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I might be dissecting what he says, but that's only because I've watched this show 20 times or whatever. Don't get me wrong.
No,
if I was face with Adam and he was saying that shit to me, I'd be like, let's go get a room.
Well,
Like,
what you're saying makes sense, and whether it be Lottie controlling the narrative and sending people to intentionally, like same with Thaisa, she's sending, Jessica intentionally to spike these things and doing these things intentionally to get them in the presence. How do they know they're going to be there? What are they doing? Like, there's some monitoring going on, and like like in the biblical and demonic perceptions or angelic perceptions too, whatever you want to think, like angels are sent to you in these times like that, just when you need them. Demons too, and they know exactly what to say, use the right words. They can disguise themselves as good or bad or an angel presence. Lucifer's, he comes as a beautiful angel, and there's like, these are called monitoring spirits, which they show so much symbolism between the ravens, between the animals, and like, just yourself and Adam here. I think
yeah.
could be one of them. He could be, and then same with like Walter, like same with all these things. Like, there is definitely something else controlling the narrative and attacking these people just at the particular time where she's trying to figure out, is her life a lie? And what's going on is like all of this should be, when she's finding your husband is cheating, is a huge thing. And then here you are, a temptation like that. And what does
Mhm.
she do? She eats it. She cannibalizes that temptation.
Yeah, true that. And
Literally.
that goes back. We talked about that with I can't remember who, but anyways, yeah, that was kind of an association that I was making too. Was like, it kind of connects to the idea of like Shauna and the rabbit. Adam is like
Yeah.
an extension of that, or Thaisa and the
Mhm.
dog. But Simone is sort of, I don't want to associate Simone with the dog, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, they have
Yeah.
they have their devotees, they have their animal familiars. Like, there's something here. There's something tangible. With Misty, she has Caligula, and then she also has all these guys, which she does talk
Well,
about in the episode. Also, she has the hiker guy who wanted her socks, and the other guy that was like, so she has a lot of
and
guys.
there's a rabbit's foot in her car. Like when Nat opens the thing, there's a rabbit's foot it looks like a cheetah or a cougar. It looks like the wolf that we see they've been putting on the mantle. It's like a little wooden animal that's inside. I think it was like a cheetah to me. It wasn't like that, which is again a predator. Okay. Yeah, but Adam is like, I love when he said, and you had it here, I think I like this book club, and I was like, oh yeah, we're using that.
Yeah, I know. I loved that. And one other thing, especially, I think Moni will appreciate this because she was in she's from the Church of Lesser Saints from servant times. But actually, this book by Kurt Vonnegut, the title Mother Night, is actually taken from Faust by Goethe. And we discussed Faust or Faustian bargains a lot when we were watching Servant, or when I was covering that. And also Lauren Ambrose is in that. So she had her own Faustian bargain to make at that point, or in that story. But anyways, the title Mother Night comes from that. So I thought that was like a fun bit of information, because it's like it's book club, right? We're comparing literature. We are deep diving into this. So the quote from Faust says, and I also thought this quote really connected to Shauna. So, I am a part of the part that was, okay, wait. I am a part of the part that was first, that, oh my God. Okay, sorry. I am a part of the part that at first was all, part of the darkness that gave birth to light, that supercilious light which now disputes with Mother Night her ancient rank and space, and yet cannot succeed. No matter how it struggles, it sticks to matter and it can't get free. Light flows from substance, makes it beautiful. Solids can check its path, so I hope it won't be long until light and the world stuff are destroyed together. And that just was like big Shauna vibes. So okay. So yeah, so that pretty much covers it with Shauna for this episode. Do you have any final?
What about
Oh, go ahead.
the room 2106?
I couldn't think of anything.
So I saw like it means a corner, like a cornerstone. Like it's, so that was funny because like when we're triangulating or using the tangents or whatever it was, and then like in Hebrew, there was something about in Hebrew like
I
where
mean,
like
it could connect to 25 in a weird way, because 6 minus 1 is 5, which would make it 2, 5. It's just,
Numerology would be 9.
maybe it's just a weird, like,
Yeah, I think there might be something. I don't know. I was just like, I wonder if there's something or if it was just whatever. But
I'm sure there's something to it that we have
yeah,
not figured out yet.
but you have put it in the notes, so I'm like,
yeah, let us know
okay.
in the comments if you make anything of the 2106.
Maybe delight or pleasure. No, that's 256.
Let me go ahead. So should we move on to?
Yeah, let's go back.
Let's
to
talk about Lottie, and then we'll get to Misty and Nat. Lottie.
So I have to like admit in my watching, and they're in the lake, and maybe this is maybe I need to burn my eyes out, because I feel, well, I guess Courtney Eaton isn't that young. She's actually older than we thought. But after last week, and like me making this distinguation, because I didn't know that she was the same person as the gods of Egypt, who I think is like one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen anywhere. But so what it was is like, I was watching her in the lake, and like there's a shot where she sees the house, and I'm like, where she just looks like all wet and beautiful, and like I'm super fan. Like I am like girl crushing hard on her now. Like I have a thing for her now, and ever since like last week, like it's just like
found out she was Zaya.
Yeah, but like she's like attacking me now. Maybe she's my monitoring spirit, but like I have some mad girl crush on her now. Like I really do. I have to just admit it and say it. Hey, I'm about to be single. I am single. Like I'm going through divorce, Courtney. What's up? Hit me up. But yeah, I heart her. Even this, I'm like, damn, bitch face is cute. Super cute.
She was super beautiful in that, and I loved her clothes in it. Oh my god, she looked so cool. I mean, it was a cool movie. Like it's a weird, there's a little bit of it's definitely a bit cheesy, but it's like it's cool. I love the premise, and I'm actually like it's been a subject I've been studying for another project, but I think I'm gonna, like, when I go to make a video, I'm gonna use a lot of footage.
We're gonna do an Egyptian, like we did the Greek. We're gonna do an Egyptian version of Yellowjackets too.
Andy says that, but I don't.
We are. Yes, we are.
Okay,
well, ISIS over there. You love ISIS.
I don't have it. I don't see it in Yellowjackets personally.
I see it everywhere.
But I do see it in another story that I covered, and I am going to share it with you, but I'm not going to say it here on this live.
You will, though. You will.
Lottie. So Lottie, she's having a hard time adjusting. So she's down to her last pill in her medication. And she, as we know, that is to kind of control her ability, her sight, and so she is like, she senses a lot. And it's interesting. I don't know if she's maybe taking like a half dose, because it seems like she's already being affected by, or I guess no, because they said they've only been out there for 3 days, and she had like 7 pills. So she must be taking them 2 a day. So she's not really thinking about that. Like if she was smart, she maybe would have cut it down to like a half dose so that it would last her a little bit longer, but I guess not. And I am not familiar with like the medication she's on, if there's some sort of like withdrawal process, but I know a lot of times, like after you stop taking antidepressants and that kind of thing, it does have like an effect on your mental state, or like your well-being. You can sort of suffer depression after that and that kind of thing, or go through like a lot of whatever, which is why you should taper off of it. So anyways, tra-la-la. But so it's interesting, she immediately like starts being affected by it. Like she starts to have extra senses about things, like when they're down at the lake, when they go to the cabin, like she really is like, I don't think so. I think something bad happened here. I don't like this. I don't like the vibes. It's not the vibe. And she doesn't even want to go in the cabin. And Ty eventually comes out and she's like, you need to go inside. Like, stop being a baby about this. And so, yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, she's immediately being affected by her abilities, but she's not wrong is the thing. And so again, it's kind of like Thaisa, or like they have these extra supernatural like abilities that are starting to come out, and Thaisa of course is denying it. She's like, you know, we don't believe in that, you don't believe in that stuff. Like, she's speaking for Lottie, but Lottie's like, no, actually I do. And then when she goes inside, whoops, wrong picture, but she does end up seeing him. I thought I had that picture in here. Oh, it's down at the end. But anyway, she does, and she at the end of the episode, she's the one who discovers dead cabin guy up in the attic, which is like so crazy to me that they all sat there, went in his cabin, got set up, lit a fire, got, you know, their blankets rolled out and everything, and they didn't even check the attic upstairs, you know, before doing so, which is really interesting. But whatever, they're kids, and it's not like Coach Ben can climb the ladder himself, unfortunately. So that's that. So anyways, thoughts on Lottie? Anyone? Drop them in the chat. Mandy, do you have thoughts on Lottie? Where are you?
Okay, so yeah, I do. Of course I do. So the thing about like these kind of pillows and things like that, well, first off, I think we can all agree that the wilderness or wherever they are, and we have come to the many theories, many different ways, that it's kind of someplace that is more magical portal. And also the near-death experience, you know, your brain cells and like DMT activations and like how you are perceiving in fight or flight, these kind of neurons in your brain start to open up more aggressively. This happens when you portal to other worlds. This happens with people who are spiritually seeking, as well as fasting is what helps you have like connect more to this kind of thought, or what, you know, might be perceived as the conscious level, whatever you want to call it. So Lottie's pills and pills like that kind of are helping to block certain things and just balance it. So if you're overproducing, it kind of will not allow you, or underproducing kind of help produce more. So when you kind of stop messing with what she is used to, and then her brain's starting to actively flow, it is literally like what some people would say is a spirit realm, or she's being connected or guided. She's more just sensitive to it. And a lot of people, and this is Carl Jung's main thing, is that he said like people with schizophrenia have this other deeper access. Like people say people with autism even, and like, are we just have neural, you know, not typical brains? And I think that that has a lot to play here. And I think that, you know, it's not something that we can prove or negate, or also say it is or isn't. It's just something, an idea that we should keep in mind. Mm-hmm. I also think that I hated the scene because the more I watched it, the more I just saw Thaisa just like throwing out insults, but yet, come on, like I'm helping you, but yeah, insulting. And Lottie was right. Like she did have a feeling, and she did see the light. Like it was interesting how she saw the cabin, because it came off as like a light in a sense. Yeah. You know, like a spirit. When you see spirits, like it's usually like flashes of light, or like kind of electricity. They say they're very well intertwined with electricity or lights, or like lights will flicker. Something like that happens. Or like when they say you see the light of God, like it's literally everything goes white, you know. And it's I thought it was like related to that as well. And when she got there, she just knew that it was something bad, and they couldn't pick it. And then she happens to know how to get upstairs to that other realm, which this to me also seems like a tabernacle type play, because like, or Carl Jung's mind, like when you talk about the consciousness, subconsciousness, and like the ego, the id, all that stuff, like there's a lot of plays into this 3-box realm. And we have a lot of things about the boxes where you have inner rooms of the upper inner room. So, and this is the perfect example of the cabin where we have the 3 rooms, and only some people can access the upper inner room until they do the seance to call upon it. So it's really interesting. I think I'm going to pay more attention to it as we go throughout this season 1, about who's in the upper room, when and why, what they're doing, and a little bit more into that play, because this dead guy is in the inner or like the upper realm. Like there's more to it, and even the levels of oh, I can't hear you, Aaron. Are you mute? But like I just thought it was interesting, and that kind of made me think more about Lottie's ability to connect to the wilderness first, her ability to connect to spirits first. Is she connecting to the spirit realm, you know, exactly then? And then
Well,
Van, I think Van is the first person to go up there to sleep or something too after she almost dies, or like I don't know, we'll see. I can't remember, but
well, it's
we'll see.
interesting, yeah, because Lottie, she is the most resistant to enter the cabin, but she's also the first to like interact with the wilderness, or like, you know, be affected by it. And to what Lola said here in the chat, to those supernatural abilities first manifested when they were both children, and suddenly having to survive in the wilderness takes away that rigidity that they've grown accustomed to, the rigidity of being in civilization, if that makes sense. And I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I wrote a whole video about that idea, because yeah, the curtain of the wilderness, it protects them in a sense. It hides them from the world, but also you can't, like, it creates like a like a rigid structure. They're almost like in a separate world because they're hidden away just by the curtain of the wilderness and the veil of that. But what's interesting about that idea is they both, yeah, you're right, they both did manifest those abilities as children, but Lottie was medicated, whereas I don't believe Thais, I mean, we've been given no indication that Thaisa was. And so it seems like she kind of represses all of that, carries it within her, and that sort of has manifested into maybe that's part of her, like, multiple personalities or what have you. Like if you're, and I don't know, you know, mental health, I'm not a psychologist, but I know that repressing trauma and those kind of things is detrimental to your mental health. And so we have to wonder, is that playing into her having these multiple personalities on from a psychological perspective versus a supernatural perspective, which, you know, we can sort of estimate that's what's happening, or toy with that idea more so than like a professional a professional level of an issue. So
But I also think that it's just like I'm telling you, like there's something more to it with this veil, this spiritual realm, and because even like Carl Jung talks about it, and the tabernacle, and it's all like the same kind of setup where it's where you take the regular experiences or people who have. When you get into that next room, you're able to see the supernatural, and you're able to like discern between spirits, or not even discern. Sometimes that takes practice and work. But what it is that you're able to see. And a lot of times they fool you because you think that is good, and you never know because you don't question. But it's like, just because you can see it doesn't mean you're saved. Like, you have to do the work too, and that's how kind of what's happening to them. It's like they see it, but they're not doing the work. One's doing the work, the other one is doing the work, but yet I think like Lottie's figure to me ends up being like the Jezebel spirit personally. Like, she ends up connecting, but she's seeing, and she's taking it to another level in the wrong way, or right or wrong, whatever you want to say. There's no right or wrong in my head, actually, but it just is, we're here to experience. But it's just it's between two dimensions, this whole thing about the tabernacle and the realm, and Carl Jung's the ego and the id, and as well as like the consciousness and the subconscious minds. It's like different dimensions and different realms and different things that we become aware of that we haven't seen in the past, or different personifications, or different things like archetypes. For example, we set ourselves in one archetype, but when you realize you're able to be any archetype, you're opening yourself up to the next like box in the realm. But like, and then there's the inner box, which is the true you, the authentic self, the golden box, that little box that we see when all the girls are healing, and Thaisa's drawing a gold box. Like, there's more to that there, and I'm excited to see and unveil it literally, because it unveils throughout this season 1 episodes.
That plays into like the, going back to the Greek stuff, like the temple, the temple at Eleusis had different rooms that you would go into before you'd, like, the Telesterion was like the big temple, but Artemis had her own room there. there's the Hestia, the fire pit, the goddesses had their own distinct things, and you weren't initiated to the entire mysteries when you went to it for the very first time. You actually would go a second time. If you went the second year, then you would be introduced to a further, step in the mysteries. And so I do think that there's something to that with like the actual cabin, and them having sort of distinct areas, or maybe, like you were saying, who goes into the upper level? Is that somebody who's advanced in their studies or what have you? So, and even like, I think there's another like level to that when we look at like JV versus varsity and that kind of thing too. So, okay. So moving on, we're going to start talking about, Nat and Misty, but mostly Nat. So, in the younger years, there's not a whole heck of a lot that goes on with these guys, but they do make it to the lake. And of course, these three are checking out Travis. And it's interesting because I don't think Mari and Jackie actually go swimming. We don't see them going swimming, and they're sort of bonding with each other to like, Jackie's definitely going out of her way to try and make Shauna jealous, by bonding with Mari. And of course, Mari's eating it up because Jackie's like super popular. She's like, yeah, let's have our lockers next to each other and we can do this and that. So she's kind of playing sort of that balance to Jackie and her like Rutgers dream of them going to Rutgers and we're going to decorate our room like this and that. And Mari's totally like, yeah, feeding into it. But they start checking out Travis. And of course, Nat's already got kind of a little thing going on with Travis. And earlier in the episode, Travis, being his typical self, he takes a little extra food, but he's taking it to go and try and get his brother to eat. And but then he's a total dick to him, and Natalie's like watching the whole thing happen. And again, going back to like her being a goddess figure, like just watching over them, it's just kind of a funny thing. And she's also as Artemis, she's a protector of children. So when she sees Travis like beating up his little brother, it's almost like she's like there as like a protector or like a reminder from your goddess, like don't pick on little kids like that, anyways, tra-la-la, off on a tangent. But moving forward, so hold on, let me go. Oh, that's a great picture.
This was my look today. This is the Travis look. I kind of thought like I was a mix between that and this is, by the way, I got to represent. This is my uncle's shirt. He does Lansing T-shirt company. But I thought it was appropriate. And then I happened to find randomly like a flannel that looks just like Travis's. So that was my look.
I love it. No, you look cute today.
Thanks.
But yeah, so Misty and Nat, they're on their road trip and they stop by the gas station and Misty has to get some jerky. And Nat's like, really? Like, come on. And we have to wonder, like, how many of these girls, well, we know Shauna's not, but we know Taissa is. Are Nat and Misty, are they vegetarians, do you think? Obviously not Misty because she just ate the jerky. So I don't know, but it's mostly Nat.
Probably Nat is because she is doing all the self-conscious and healing. And I think she was in California. I mean, I think it was more like, she's healing, but I love her attitude here where she's like, oh, really? This is how we're going to do this. And like calling Misty out the whole way. And Misty is like, yo, she's got some issues. Call her from her boyfriends, texting Kevin as Nat. And then she finds that like Nat finds that she pulled her Porsche, which last episode it kind of goes correlate with her pulling the cords from the boxes. I wonder if there's something about her pulling a cord in general, there's something deeper there.
Well, think about also Shauna's birth scene.
The cord.
Yeah. And even in the birth scene with the chicken, there's an umbilical cord in that scene that Jackie cuts. She cuts the cord.
But we see also like Misty.
But also like Shauna has all that imagery with the hooks. So maybe that's Misty's, imagery. She's associated with some sort of tether or a cord of some. Yeah. That's her imagery.
Well, and it definitely like the thing with the socks and just how the staplers, like how they steal the office supplies. And it's just funny, she creates these storylines to cover up her storylines, which is again is like a huge thing in like the covert narcissist or the codependent who becomes a narcissist, but like she creates these, you know, overzealous stories just to try to cover up the things she does, but she's also like behind the scenes manipulating everything to go her way.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, it's just like you
Ah,
see her being so manipulative this episode. It's crazy.
so, question for you guys in the chat, because on that note, you know, Misty, she is pretty manipulative, and it's kind of like, what does she know? How much does she know, especially going into this road trip? Like, obviously she found Travis's address. She knows like so much about everyone else. Has she already been up to his house? Has she already, like, you know, done all this? Here's my question for you guys in the chat. Who called the cops on Nat and Misty? Do you think it really was a neighbor who saw them breaking in the middle of nowhere? Or do you think it was Misty herself who just wanted to like create the situation where she and Nat were spending more time together, you know, stuck together? But the thing is that Nat sends her outside. Why don't you go check the garbage can, see if you can find anything? And so Misty goes outside. So there is some time unaccounted for. And then as soon as she comes back in, the cops show up like right after that. So what do you guys think? Who called the cops? Was it the neighbors or was it Misty?
I think it was her to just to pull that one up with Kevin Tan and hoping that she could get it and you know, pursue it. I also think, you know, that she could be again Lottie Sims. Like she was so cult following to Lottie most of the time. And maybe she's there to manipulate that situation, knowing that. And it doesn't surprise me because that is a tactic where people want to become the hero, and she sets herself up to become the hero all the time. And this whole thing with Lottie and her, and maybe she didn't call the cops when they find Travis, but I think maybe Lottie was the one that called the cops, but you know, because that was like the timeline. They happen to be in the same area, same place, all this stuff. Like it's just too weird. Because then when we find out in season 2 that it was Lottie that went back there.
Yeah. And I rewatched that scene after this because I had some thoughts. So yeah, I do agree with you. I think it was Lottie who called the cops at the ranch later on, because she had just, you know, as far as we know, she had just been there and then she just left. So that makes sense. Like, who else would have called them? Obviously not someone from the ranch, because no one else had found him. The only other person that would have known would have been Lottie. And it would kind of make sense that she would have called like after she's gone from the scene, you know, or whatever. Who knows what the nature of the phone call was, like just an anonymous report or, you know, whatever. But
she was checking in with Lottie, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, exactly. It's so interesting. And I still don't know if I really believe Lottie's story about it. And I still don't think like Nat did either. But
even the whole like when we see Misty going back to Lottie, like she's like, "What are you doing here?" Like it's not like, oh, you know, it's kind of like, why aren't you out on my run? Like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be showing up. Like I think we should rewatch that too. Like,
yeah.
And this was too much.
Yeah, so like finding the note, telling Nat she was right, and that's what led me to rewatching it, because I was like, well, are we all in agreement on what Nat was right about? Because it kind of implies that what she was right about, and this is what brings the wilderness really to presence in this episode as like an entity, would be tell Nat she was right, because their whole thing was, if they tap in with death, if they come close to death or in a near death experience, that's when they can communicate with the wilderness. And we saw that with so when I went back, and that was like season 2 episode 3 or 4, where they do the flashback with Lottie, and she went in that moment of Travis, like what he's trying to do, he has his own intentions of what's going to happen, but what actually happens is Laura Lee comes and she speaks with Lottie. And so it's all, you know, we have to wonder. And I had the theory also in that other scene in season 2 with Nat, when they are actually doing it, where she's ODing and coming to a near-death experience, and she sees herself as the antler queen, like in her vision, But we also see Travis like standing in the doorway, which doorways, he's looking out of the doorway and it looks like he's talking to someone. So my thought was like, you know, okay, this near-death experience like brings about the wilderness or a way to communicate with the wilderness. But maybe if there's a third party present, it's the third party who gets to communicate. You know, it's not necessarily the person who's experiencing death. It's someone who's in their presence. So I don't know. There's
yeah,
so
it
much
could be, and it's not even that. It's like demons will go for like the most weak ones. You know what I mean? Like, or things will like they'll attack. They might not always go to you because you're too strong or you're too aware. They'll go into whatever the weakest link is, or the like your children sometimes, or like your house. I mean, it's literally that you know, anytime you're in that realm or you get under that veil, they will come. You know, it doesn't matter who, what, where. And if you want it too bad, then they'll deny you. They seek to destroy. So they'll jump into whoever's the next. It's interesting. Yeah. I and I love how you said about the doorway, who's standing in it, whatever. It actually made me think, because I feel like when I used to fight with my demonic covert narcissist dark triad divorcee I'm trying to go through, he always used to stand in the doorway. I'm like, why don't you come in? You don't even talk to me. Like, just stand in the doorway. Like, ooh, demonic spirits are everywhere. Wait, demons are prowling everywhere.
Well, and here's another, like, in the doorway. So we have this moment with Nat where she's, you know, she sent Misty outside, and she's like looking in Travis's room and smelling his flannel, and it is like this really tender, sad moment, and knowing like what's to come, you know, it's even more sad and heartbreaking because, like, I've always said, you know, the other girls have their animal familiars that sort of tether them to the wilderness, and up and, you know, through season 1, Nat doesn't really have that. You know, she's the huntress, so she's a killer of animals, but her sort of tether to the wilderness was always Travis. And even though in season 2 she has that connection with the white moose, well, the moose eventually dies, but that signifies her as sort of their leader because that's a sacred animal. But again, her familiar, her tether to the wilderness is Travis. Like, they had such a significant connection in the wilderness, and then even after the fact, that it's like that's their wildness that they toy with, you know, with each other. But that's why they also can't be around each other all the time. You know, Thaisa says, oh, you guys are so toxic, yada yada. But yeah, we have this moment where she sort of has this quick vision where she thinks she sees him in the mirror outside of the doorway. So again, like another hint to that. He's standing like Orion, just FYI. And then also this photograph that they have together, and the colors are really significant, like in filmmaking, those red and blue lighting, like the contrasting lights are utilized a lot in filmmaking to like indicate emotion. You know, red is like such a raw color. Hold on, I put this down. So red represents rage, violence, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And blue can represent isolation, haunting, or being hunted, trapped, or lost. And yeah, it just kind of really encompasses their relationship, you know, the hunter, the huntress.
It's perfect for all this. Absolutely perfect for all that. Good catch, Aaron.
I love it.
That's citizen detective work right there.
That's right. That's right. So they do end up in jail. And I loved this moment where, you know, Nat calls Ty to try and get her to bail her out. And she's like, once she learns, like, she's been trying to get to Travis, she's like, no, I'm not just going to bail you out. Like, there is a difference between, you know, sending someone to rehab versus bailing someone out of jail for breaking and entering. You know, it's kind of, I can see where she's coming from in a sense. But again, you know, it's another hint to these women sort of being indebted to their queen. This is we don't know at this point that Nat is the queen, but she, you know, Ty pays for her rehab. She calls her when she's in jail. Misty's like looking out for her, like creating these situations where Nat can't go anywhere on her own. She has to have her sort of her knight in shining armor coming along with her to protect her. So it's interesting, the little subtle hints that we get to that. But I do love this moment because knowing that Nat, as the huntress, she's associated with Artemis, and Artemis's home is in the wild places. She doesn't really have a home. She lives in the forest and the wild places with the animals and that kind of thing. So I love this moment where Ty's like, just go home, Nat. And Nat's like, home? What is that? And she also takes this moment where she kind of strikes back at Thaisa, because Thaisa is like taking jabs at her, and she's like, oh, you just think you're so perfect with your perfect little life and your perfect little family, and basically all the things that you do to paint the picture like you're so freaking perfect, Ty. But anyways, I just thought that was an interesting scene. But thankfully Misty has Kevin Tan on the line, so she's able to get him to come bail them out. So so that's kind of about it for Misty and Nat. Obviously, unfortunately, Travis, they find him a bit too late, and that's a pretty tragic moment for Natalie. It's a tragic moment. It's very sad, and like the music is perfectly, choreographed. I don't know, that's not the right word, but it's the perfect song, Vienna. So any final thoughts on Natalie or Travis or Misty?
Triangulation there, but change the picture. That's too sad.
Okay.
It's triggering. Yeah.
All right. Tell Nat she was right. So, all right, you guys, I think it is time for us to move on to our final interesting character of this episode, who Lottie discovers in the attic and is our beloved dead cabin guy. So he's looking real sharp here. Obviously they smelled him before they saw him. When they go into the cabin, they're like, it reeks in here. Yeah, there's been a dead guy in here for the last 10, 20, 50 years. Who knows?
Interestingly enough, though, we talked about before, like the sulfur mines and things like that, like demons are supposedly like they smell like sulfur, by the way. Like when a demon or a spirit is around, it supposedly smells like salt. And then the other one is like the presence of angels smell like lavender or like a clean linen. But I just thought it was very interesting because they have like particular rotten smells with food and flesh, and like when they come around, like Jackie's with her itching, they attack your skin too. And so does narcissism. Narcissism actually, like their skin disease is associated with narcissistic abuse. So I just wanted to point that out because like this whole demon, like in the whole smell and stench, there could be something there.
Yeah. So it is interesting. So he, he's there and he's got his shotgun. There's a symbol on the floor right by where he's sitting. So what do you guys think? Obviously, it's pretty obvious that like he took his own life, but he had plenty of ammo. He had, his gun. He could have been hunting. He could have, we don't know what brought him there. We don't know why he chose to end his life. We really don't know anything about him other than the few hints that are in the cabin. And he, it seemed like it's a well-supplied cabin. It's got everything he needs. He's got, rope. He's got tools. There was a little bit of food there, which may or may not have been good at, the time he was alive, but we just really don't know like what led to this circumstance. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about dead cabin guy? Kids, fellas?
Yeah, I feel like we should leave it for something else, but I like the introduction for sure. He knows how to make an introduction.
He definitely
I know that we've talked about. Yeah, and I know we've talked about before some of the cut scenes with storylines. So I wonder if it's going to be like a whole other thing. I feel like we need to educatedly wait on our hypothesis and do some more some more testing of our ideas and research.
My big question, just because this all like happened in the same episode as The Man with No Eyes, is, you know, are these two related in some kind of way? Obviously dead cabin guy doesn't have eyes anymore because he's dead, but
Well,
um
we're all one, same as you, same
yeah,
as you.
so like
So if we
what,
were to talk, oh, go
were
ahead.
he always I don't know. I mean, was it like Thais's grandma situation? We don't know. And that goes back to like, did the man with no eyes, did he come from the wilderness, or did Thaisa bring him to the wilderness?
Or is it the
Related
shapeshifter?
to each other in any way? Like, so dead cabin guy, according to IMDb, is actually called the Hunter. And he's played by William Vaughn. And the man with no eyes is played by Bram Taylor.
Okay,
So
so hold on. Dead cabin guy then played by somebody. So that is who we are seeing Jackie go to at the end.
yes.
Okay,
Correct.
so that alone is like kind of more narrowing on the decision, but like also remember a lot of this whole show is about shape shifting and just having different tones and appearing as different things. So I think that he like appeared to Jackie, but I don't think we're gonna see him again. I think they're all appearing in their own ways to different people. You know what I mean? Like it's shape shifting. So maybe it could be the same, but it's not gonna appear the same. Or the veil is just attacking what is their weaknesses.
Well, so there was in the original script from episode 207, so season 2, episode 7, there's a whole scene where basically after Shauna gives birth and they finally get the cabin door open, where Lottie actually, she instructs Van when they're all like leaving to go and kind of get fresh air and, you know, water or whatever, like snow to melt and that kind of thing. Lottie actually tells Van she needs to stay behind and clean the cabin. And Van's like, what? But that's part of her imagery as like the cleansing fire. So while she's cleaning, she pulls out the dresser in the room and she finds a piece of paper, which turns out to be like a journal entry. And it says, though I still miss my baby desperately, I'm beginning to accept a greater wisdom than my own. I think it still lives here in the wilderness. It is the wilderness. And there is comfort in the fact that none of this was ever up to me at all. And so that's a really crazy, like, thing to find.
It goes just with Adam's comment about like, you know, I just let go about the existential, you know, getting to the next level, just letting go. And even in the Bible and stuff, like letting go and surrendering to the chaos, surrendering to God, surrendering to, you know, stop controlling, surrendering. Yeah. Surrender that and stop like limiting yourself with end results and just let it become a result or a new thing on your own. This whole existential like being of a greater understanding for life. And then it also went with like how wide or how deep or how much is actually mine to keep, like the book club and a lot of things that you're going for in this higher level of being. So he takes his suffering, and I mean, I think this is also, we talked about the possibility of his wife losing the baby too, but there's just like a greater wilderness in nature that it's really not up to us. We don't have control.
Yeah. And we do have this photo of, there will be eventually a Cabin Guy special. We don't know when it's coming. Well, it's coming sometime before season 3. We just don't know exactly when between now and then. The fairies took the hunter's baby. I like it, Moni. Maybe we're underestimating the fae of the wilderness. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, we really don't know. And I feel like once we get the Cabin Daddy special, like, we are going to learn so much, like, about the greater story as a whole. You know, what's going on with the girls, what happened to his child, what happened to his wife, you know, did they experience something similar to what the girls are experiencing, you know, or, you know, he, like we said, he has ammo, he has a gun. Why isn't he hunting? He's called the Hunter. It's a hunting cabin. So, I don't know.
He got stuck in the veil, and that's part of what it came back with them, and like is now jumping into spirits like Callie or Jeff or whatever they're going for. But like it could be literally a person haunting and demonically possessing. Like maybe he ended up being some crazy murderer, and then now they have this thing because his spirit's not crossing over. So that would be really cool too.
There's been like the theory that I don't know what the guy's name is, but there was like some serial killer that would take women to the forest and would hunt them. And there's been a lot of people who have speculated that the story may be like related to that somehow. I don't personally believe that it is. I just think there's like way too much like supernatural nuance going on for that, but I could be completely wrong. So who knows?
Well, I like them dropping hints or even including a little bit of that, and then we did talk about, or Misty talks about all the serial killers and like what's going on with them. I definitely like wouldn't be surprised if they put that in there, or if they like lead us into all these different shapeshifter ways in some sort of book club too.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
It's cool.
Speculate on. And again, going back to like, are these guys being related or not? They're being introduced in the same episode, the man with no eyes and dead cabin guy, or the hunter, and sort of the wilderness as an entity in itself, or at least it's being alluded to at this point just because of Travis's death. Tell Nat she was right, and we find out in season 2 sort of what that funnel is. So I really do think those were like 3 entities that go with episode 3. So many layers of the 3s,
or a triple goddess, like a triple god type thing, triple spirit type thing.
Yeah, that's what I be. And same with like Coach Ben, Travis, and Javi. Like their dichotomy, they're like 3 male like representations of that same idea.
Yeah.
So,
and then we talk about also the levels of hell and like where you can go and things like that. And like in Catholicism, you have your options are not just hell, but you have like another level of hell where you're able to work your way through works into heaven, which is not like a lot of religions don't really believe in that, but there are a few that do. So it could be like this off-world thirdly realm where Cabin Daddy's trying to like stuck in the veil, trying to work his way to heaven by haunting other girls, or I don't know. Like it just popped in my head when I saw this.
And I think that kind of even connects going back to, we talked about, I think when episode 1, Paradise Lost, that's the structure of that story, like basically escaping from hell, coming to earth, and then being sent back to hell, essentially.
And Dante's Inferno, and when we talk about the Greek mythology and where we think season 3 is going to go, because we've seen thus far, now they're going to have to go through all these like their cabins burned, the safe houses, so now they have to like go up the levels of the Inferno, which is the mountain range, or how they're going to get out of the wilderness. So I kind of think that that's what's going to happen, some storylines appealing to that nature, but we will see the nature of the wilderness.
Yeah. And I guess like my thoughts going out of this episode are really like, are those 2 related in any way? Is the hunter somehow related to the man with no eyes? Going back, is the man with no eyes, like, is he originally from the wilderness, or is he something else entirely? But we had to consider, like, with the man with no eyes, with dead cabin guy, if he ends his own life, like, was he like worshiping death? And if the man with no eyes represents death, then it's like, was he like worshiping him in a sense? I don't know. There's just so much to like unpack or contemplate with that. But I definitely feel like, in a way, those 3 male figures are also, or I view the wilderness as sort of a male, like,
it could. I energy. Like the idea though.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But well, because even Lottie refers to it. Lottie says the god of that place. So I think she even views it as like a male energy.
I see it as like neutral. But I think that what you just said now, it kind of like got me thinking a little bit in the fact that maybe he was the hunter, he could see, but now he's blinded by the spirits or death. Death is, I think, there's ideas that death is blind, it doesn't need eyes, but it like could be him. Because a hunter, like, think about it, the worst thing you can do is take away their sight. They can't see anything anymore.
Very true.
That's the worst thing you can do. So it could be like his hell realm, and it's just it just came to my head. Anyway, let's close it out. 2 minutes.
Yeah,
exactly. 2 hours.
Pretty good. We made it at 2 hours, so we'll try and let's do this. So, anyways, I hope everybody has an awesome week this week, has a great holiday if you're celebrating. If not, just have a great week. And we'll be back next week to discuss episode 4. What's it called? I don't remember. Bear Down.
Bear Down. Lottie.
So
we'll be looking into Lottie.
Yep. And so we'll be here to discuss that and all the other fun stuff. And I will hopefully have a video out for you guys in the next few days. So yeah, any parting thoughts, Mandy?
Nope. Just again, remember the blood sacrifice that brought us into Thanksgiving. So we have to be like really valuable of the lives that were lost. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, just be thankful to this land that we are lucky enough to live upon. So anyways, but yeah, thank you all. I appreciate you all being here. We're so happy we had such a nice time with you all today, and thank you, and we will see you next week. I forgot Jackie, but anyways, Jackie out.
Well, Jackie out.